Thanks for being here. My name is Mile Marker, also known as Madeline. This podcast aims to discover what it means to live authentically. I work to uncover tools to help me be most present in my life. Each episode, we will discuss themes like how to listen to your body, understanding ways to be true to yourself, and learning what deep fulfillment looks like. The episodes will also relate to ideas inspired by my 2024 hike across the state of Arizona. Let's do this.
Welcome to episode 7. While the intention of this podcast is to reflect on my life in 2025 as it relates to the hike in Arizona in 2024, this is my 7th episode and I'm still trying to come up with a balance between talking a lot about hiking and hiking logistics and talking about all of my grand revelations post-hike. So today I decided, before we listen to the Arizona Trail Day 7 audio clip, I will talk about one of the tools that I used during this hike. When you are hiking, an important tool to have is a map. And in the past, people hiked with paper maps. I did not use any paper maps on this trip. You can order paper maps from the Arizona Trail Association, but instead of using paper maps that can get damaged or lost, I used a cell phone app. And it is an app that can be used offline, so without the need of data services. You can run it on airplane mode. And the app is called Farout. Farout was formerly known as Guthook. And the Farout app was an unbelievable tool. The Farout Guides website, which is faroutguides.com, has a catalog of maps, interactive, virtual, mobile maps that you can purchase. And the Arizona Trail guide costs $24.99. And when you download it, you can turn your phone GPS on and see where you are located along the trail. And in addition to seeing where you are, there are many waypoints, and the waypoints have different icons depending on what the feature is. So there is a bear box icon, or a little hiker icon, or a little gate icon, or a water droplet icon, and they all represent different types of waypoints. And the little water droplet icon indicates a water source, and this could be a river, this could be a creek, any type of water feature, frankly. And when you click on any of the waypoints, it tells you what it is. Let's see what the water entails. So if I click on a water droplet at mile 113.3, there is Cienega Creek, and this is at 3,000 feet elevation. There can be comments and notes and different information about this waypoint. In this case, the one I clicked on is Cienega Creek. The About section says, Cienega Creek is a fairly reliable water source. But more importantly, you click on the comments. And based on other Farout app users, you can see recently what other people have said. So I'm looking at this app, and it is June 18th, 2025. On Wednesday, May 7th, 2025, Ludacris commented, Creek is flowing. On May 2nd, Cribbage and Hobbit said, low flow but enough to filter, maybe a liter a minute. All of these comments, especially with their timestamp, can indicate if a water source is flowing or not, which is hugely helpful information. So when I'm filling up water, let's say at Cienega Creek, and I don't know how long it will be until my next water source, I can try to find the last time a comment was made on the upcoming water sources to see, is this reliable? The waypoint icons that I use the most, definitely number one was water. And another one that was useful is a little triangle that's in the shape of a tent, and it would identify good campsites or spots that you might pitch a tent. Because you might be thinking, oh, you're on a trail. Can't you just set up camp and pitch a tent anywhere you want? The answer is no, not really. When you are in national parks, you have to camp in designated places. So that's a really specific time when you are forbidden to pitch a tent anytime you want. But even if you're just on the trail, generally, a lot of times you're in a steep section or a rocky section or a thick brush section where you don't have a flat spot to put your tent. So it would be nice when we looked at the little tent icons to see, okay, in a half a mile, there's a clearing that has enough space for approximately 3 tents. That was helpful information. I used the Farout app every single day, and it also would indicate if there is a side trail. The good news is the trail was decently well marked. On trees or on signs, there would be indicators saying, Arizona Trail, this direction. But on the off chance that you accidentally meandered down a side trail, you could just pull up the app and say, oh, look, there was a turnoff a tenth of a mile ago. Let me retrace my steps and get on the correct path. So I loved the Farout app. The Farout guides are excellent. If this interests you at all, you can download the Farout app and find a free guide. There are plenty of free guides, and they're really cool to just do research on trailhead locations and elevation gain. There's a really cool elevation profile view in addition to the map view. So I loved that guide. And that's going to be my precursor for our day 7 hiking audio.
Today was really exciting. This is the end of day 7. It is Saturday, March 16th. We made it, I think, 18 or so miles. We met a lot of people today. There were some Boy Scouts, and we got some water from them and Gatorade, which was nice. Also this morning when we woke up, there was a man bringing back water. So last night, there was a couple that I was peeking out of my tent, and I saw them taking all the waters in the bear box, but then I scurried off after them, and so the bear box was empty. But then in the morning, he returned, and the man said his name was John and his wife is Jody, and Jody was single speed mountain biking that section, which I thought was insane. I might have already mentioned this, but he packed 21 gallons of water back in for everyone else, which was really nice. So we filled up this morning with that. Then we made it to a nice stream. We saw Robert at a stream. We didn't use that one though. Then we went to the next stream and took a bath. It was really nice. Rested there for a little while, waited for the sun to come out. Then we ran into Morgan, walked with her for some time, had a snack in a little shady arroyo area. Then we ran into Cavs. So we went to another bear box near Sayarita Road, and Cavs was there, and he said, hey, do you guys anyone want fruit or pizza? And we all had clementines. And he was explaining about the trail that goes around Patagonia. So it used to cut through Patagonia, but then they spent like 3 years and a bunch of money rerouting it, which is kind of a bummer, to be honest. It seems like the new path is like worse than the original path, but you know what, sometimes such is life, and you just have to roll with the punches. I shared his sentiment that the new path seems not much better, and he actually recommended there's a section near Flagstaff that could use a redirect instead, but it is what it is. He said he saw Siesta, and he actually picked her up earlier today. She was doing a road walk to Vail. It's funny, whenever we run into Morgan, I always hike faster. So I had 2 sub 20 miles today, 20 minute per mile. So that was pretty fast for me. So interestingly, frankly, because of that, my afternoon was quicker than my morning. But today was a really nice day. Good terrain, lots of ocotillos still. We saw, what was that cactus we saw? It was a new type. Oh, we saw our first jumping cholla. Yeah. We're camping, we're pretty much near Highway 10 and Highway 83, kind of in between. We're at mile like 108, 107, 108, something like that. And there are some cactus around. So this area, thankfully, where we're camping has some smooth areas, but there's a ton of cactus and rocks around.
So it's definitely kind of sharp, definitely getting prickly areas. I feel really good. I'm going to take my Band-Aid off of my love handle though, because it's bothering me a little bit. But feet feel okay, body feels good generally, so gonna be a good day tomorrow. I'm making it to Colossal Cave tomorrow, so that'll be really exciting. Get a new resupply. Bye. Time to eat. What you just heard was audio from day 7 hiking the Arizona Trail. And you can hear I mentioned getting to mile 108. And mile 108 was noted on the app. So that's how I knew how far I'd gone that day, because I was able to check my location based on the different far out waypoints. But what I really want to talk about based on this recording is the water jugs being taken from the bear box and then being returned. Because I remember when I stuck my head out of the tent to see this man taking these water jugs, my first instinct was to react. And frankly, my first instinct was to overreact. I don't think I had checked out that bear box before he showed up, but I remember leaving my tent and scurrying over and thinking, oh my gosh, all the water jugs are gone. And my first instinct was to just run with my thoughts of, why did he take all the jugs? Where have they gone? Is like just thinking about these things that were probably negative. Certainly not thinking, oh, maybe he'll bring them back in the morning. I had never seen anyone take jugs of water from a bear box before, but already off the bat, I don't even know what the word is, derailing. And all of these reactive thoughts, all of these reactions were not productive. But I didn't let this get to me too much that night, especially because I knew that there were going to be reliable water sources the next day. But when you see something that you are uncertain about, it's very easy to jump to conclusions. Of course, we want to see something, create our own bias, and just jump to the most outlandish conclusions. And I think a sort of related phrase to this is intent versus impact. And my sister Emily introduced this phrase to me. Most people have good intentions, but they may impact you in different ways. And for this instance, I was not viewing this situation of the water being taken with a positive intent. I was thinking just doomsday thoughts, not, oh, maybe this man taking these jugs has good intentions. And when we jump to conclusions, it usually is because of our own thoughts and our own minds deciding to jump to conclusions. And it's never first thinking, what is the intention of the person I'm reacting to? Because if we thought initially, the intention of the person I'm reacting to is probably a good intention, there's no reason for me to derail. And the impact of this reaction is overreaction and anxiety and just something that's likely irrational. But in the morning, when he came back and brought all the water, I could just speak to him and say, wow, thank you so much for bringing 21 gallons of water. This is such a blessing for me and for anyone that's going to be coming later in the day that is looking for some water that they do not need to filter. 21 gallons would take a long time to fill up from your sink or your garden hose and to haul back to your car and then haul back to the bear box. That was really kind. But I wish that my first instinct hadn't been to just judge the situation. I think the other thing that may have led me to jump to conclusions with this man taking all the water jugs is that I never felt totally calm on the trail. I was always a little bit jumpy. I was always a little bit on edge. And I think that made me more reactive in general, just because I wanted to be hyper aware. But the irony is being hyper aware is counterproductive. Being calm and being at peace is much better of a state to be in and have awareness than to feel constantly on edge. And something that I'm trying to today, if we want to relate this intent versus impact to today, is to not be so reactive and to avoid overreaction and not to spend too much time on more meditation-based learnings or musings, I should say. But one of the key takeaways from the meditation was to observe your present scenario and to not react, to experience what is happening around you and to take in and understand and be aware of what's going on, but not to jump to conclusions. And I think taking a deep breath is always a great way to try not to jump to conclusions, but I'm glad I didn't really derail my mind with this guy taking the water and being concerned, because everything worked out in the end. Everything usually works out in the end. And by following our trains of thought down these bizarre tunnels, it's not usually productive. Most of the time, actually, it's counterproductive. And just witnessing what's in front of you and then not placing judgment on what you're witnessing is healthier, is inherently better. And what I'm trying to do these days is to witness the people around me, witness my surroundings, and not place judgment on them and not overreact and just be aware. Ultimately, my current and future self want to be more aware of how it feels in my body, notice the sensations that are arising within me based on my surroundings, but becoming more sensory and sensitive is the next step. The step right now, I would say, is be aware, do not overreact. Step 2 is embrace the sensitivity. And we use the word sensitive in such a negative way, I feel like. If you say someone is sensitive, you're saying that they're wimpy or that they cry too often or that they are easily influenced. I don't know. You think of what the word sensitive, what your reaction is to that, frankly. Because I think that being sensitive is a gift, is really something to cherish. And the more we're able to look at people with good intentions and have open-mindedness on the impacts of things around us and have a heightened sensitivity to our surroundings, the better off we're going to be. I guess that was a nice sentence, so that's going to be episode 7 for now.
That concludes this episode of Musings with Mile Marker. Thanks for listening. The intro and outro music are from a track called Wake Robin, composed and recorded by my late grandfather, Bob Ackery. Cover art for this podcast was designed by Polly Morwood. Production and editing of this podcast were done by me, your host, Mile Marker, aka Madeline Ackery. See you next time.